All right. Hey, Braden. Thanks for willing to have one of these conversations recorded.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
I know we, for a while, have known each other, have had conversations, and this one will be the first one that is recorded. Other people can hear it.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. Um, really, what I want to do is ultimately, I want to hear about your product, Holy Insights. Maybe you can even start off by sharing just a brief on what it is, but then really want to just hear more about your story, how you got to where you are, and any struggles, successes, all those things in between. So, yeah, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself and what you're working on? And yeah.
Yeah, my name is Braden Murray. I am a pastor's kid from Indiana, and I've been fortunate enough where my parents have been at the same church for a very long time. And so when it was time to have my first kid, I was in a sales job that was kind of up and down. So the right job at the church opened up where I felt like I could use my skills. I've never felt a call to ministry in my life, but I do have a heart for it. And so the right job opened. I took that job just for stability purposes, but it's really grown into a lot more than that. So a couple people left, new roles were on the table, and one of the things that I picked up was our metrics for our church. I've always been analytics driven, a numbers guy. I have a supply chain management degree from Purdue. So it was very integral to everything that we did for all of my majors classes, and that's where I got very good at Microsoft Excel. And so, most churches keep track of head counts and giving and kids and salvations and all that. And so we did too. But our first problem is it was scattered across different platforms. We had some in Planning Center, we had some in our giving system, we had some on a spreadsheet. And so we were looking at different places and we are getting different reports from different systems. And so I wanted to get everything together in one place. And then two, we just want to be able to paint a picture with it. And so all it takes is like 5 minutes of data entry a week. If you're doing more than that, then let's work on your system of how you get numbers reported. But it was just born out of a need of our own church. And now I'm helping pastors take the data they already have and turn it into a visual so they can start turning their data into discipleship.
That's cool. Almost every one of these conversations I've had with people is it just kind of came out of a problem I had.
Yeah.
Yeah, so very common theme. Yeah, very cool. By the way, Purdue, last night, did you watch the game? I'm assuming you did.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Boiler up, baby.
It's a good game.
I did hear a fun fact for all of the other Indiana people listening to this. Purdue has been to more Elite Eights in the last 10 years than IU has made tournaments.
I'm not going to get into the Purdue Indiana thing. I'm in Indiana too. So just another kind of side note. Last night, I watched most of the games. It's crazy. The states that I've lived in were
all playing?
All there. Iowa.
It must be you.
Illinois. Indiana. It was like, and they all won. So it was great. Now, my school, Iowa State, then plays tonight.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So it would be awesome if 4 teams from my states were in the Elite Eight. So
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Anyways, so we connected through friends, and it's interesting as we've talked, got some similarities. I love numbers too. Stats degree.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that kind of drew me to this thing was just what you're building is something that will be hopefully software, which maybe we'll get into that discussion a little bit, but also stats. It kind of combines the two things that I love, numbers and software.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had this problem that you wanted, that you saw. What was the moment that you realized or decided you wanted to expand this to not just being used for you, but used for hopefully other churches as well?
Yeah, so I have a friend of mine who planted a church probably about 40 minutes from my church, and his family was actually one of the families on our first Sunday, 29 years ago. So we've known each other for a very long time. We've become good friends. We're both dads. So we catch up every couple of months or so and, get coffee or lunch. And I was telling him a little bit about what I was building. And I showed him, and he was like, bro, he's like, I need this at my church. He's like, you need to start selling this to churches. You could do it. And I was like, I've never even considered that. So I looked into creating a business. And so, within a couple months, so I finished it up for my church, and then after that, I started looking into LLCs and how I can start taking it to other churches. So I let him have it
Yeah.
because I wouldn't be here if it weren't for his idea. I probably wouldn't have even considered it. But it's been a really cool journey meeting pastors from all over with similar passions, similar skill sets as me, but obviously, they're geared towards the people and the shepherding, and I get to come alongside them and say, hey, we can turn these numbers into something you can use to better disciple your people.
Yeah. What's the timeline here? How long ago was it when you built it, and then when was that conversation that you had?
Yeah, so it was, I took it over 2 Januaries ago. 2 Januaries. So 20,
So a little over a year?
little over 2 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, over 2 years ago. Okay.
Yeah, 2 years ago. So 2024 January.
Got it.
I had some downtime at work, just like, hey, Pastor Dad, can I tweak this? Because ours sucks, Like, it's just keeping track of stuff. Like, it's not doing anything.
Yeah.
Right, so there's a version 1.0 out there.
Okay.
And that will be, I took that one behind the shed and shot it because version 2 is so much better. But, yeah, so version 1, I played around with for about a year. Probably 8 months into it is when I had that conversation at coffee. And then in May, I finished version 2 of last year. So it's been less than a year. And then I took it to a conference for Assemblies of God churches, which we're a part of. So the table's like $250. It was minimal investment and had a lot of good conversations, got a couple customers out of it, and thus started my journey.
Yeah, being able to very early on be at a booth and get 2 customers was probably a really good indicator of, okay, I am onto something. It's not just and it's not just my friend telling me I should sell this, but you actually sold it, which is awesome. So did that give you that sort of like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do? Or were you still kind of like, I'm not sure if this is it? Have you had that moment of like, this is absolutely it. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a roller coaster sometimes.
Sure.
You have your good weeks, you have your bad weeks, and it's been mostly good weeks. And it's been like, hey, I can really turn this into something. I've been fortunate where things have been going really well lately. And I had to take a day off of work just to handle the amount of leads that were coming in.
Yes.
I texted my family the other day. I was like, hey, I need to take more days off. I just booked 5 meetings in 2 hours, And so I was like, when I get to work on this, it's a good thing. And people, churches tend to be 10 years behind on technology. And a lot of these smaller churches just don't have the support they need or the skill set or people who want to work at a church that have these skill sets. And so it's been a really good marriage of the two where, I get to come alongside them and then they get, they feel better about where they're at as a church.
Yeah. Congrats too, by the way.
Thank you.
I mean, going from
Thank you.
too early on to now having to take days off work, that's sounding like the start of maybe making a transition. It's the start. It's the start, right?
I've considered, but a lot of risks with a couple of kids at home.
Yes. You're in a really, I won't call it the moment, but like you're in this sort of area where it's like, I could go full time. You can kind of see the like, if I did it, I think I could really do it. To like, but I'm not quite there yet, probably, or maybe I'm close. You're kind of going back and forth. You're kind of having those moments, those conversations in your head, like, am I there? Am I not there? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's making that transition is hard, but I will say, knowing you, I think you'll make it. I am sure people would be very happy for it if you like like you're doing things for so many churches. Anyways, so you had the booth, got 2 sales, awesome. What sort of was that next phase for you? Where did you go from there?
Yeah, it's a great question. So that was May. I started reaching out to the pastors I had on Facebook, the ones who grew up with the camps and whatnot, just relationships already. I got a few meetings off of that, just reaching out to, the people who are already in your first degree network. Got a couple more from that. I was fortunate enough to meet a guy who has a lot of influence. Like, he's got his own side business too. And so he was a connection of my dad's, and he knew he was going to be in Indiana. So he reached out and he said, hey, would you give us 30 minutes and let Braden talk to you about what he's doing? And so he was like, the 30 minutes that he promised, we were like, hey, promise 30 minutes, it's been an hour. He's like, no, this is really cool. And so I was just picking his brain. I'm like, hey, what should I charge for this? But how do I talk about it? Things like that. And so he was able to give me really great advice. That's where I switched models of, because it's an Excel sheet, right? There's no, it's really hard to do a subscription model that way. And so we finished on a one-time cost, and I've developed add-ons after like reports and coaching and all that. He was like, hey, I probably want this at my church. And he was talking about like all these years ago, someone gave him a booth because he saw what he was doing and he believed in it. Mm-hmm. So he has a annual conference, and he gave me a booth for free. He's like, if you can get here, he's like, you got a spot. I'm like, okay, deal. And so like I remember getting back in the car with my dad, and I just looked at him and I was like, what just happened? And he's like, you're gonna go, right? I said, yeah, absolutely. I'd be stupid not to. And so I went there, and it's a church growth conference. People are there for the mindset of growth. Yeah. Pulled 7-8 meetings, got 2 or 3 customers from that, and so I feel like that was the moment that I was like, I have something really good, and it's just a matter of time. And so I think that conference experience was kind of the catalyst of I can do this.
That's great. Yeah, I think probably each of these moments have been a little bit more. It's like you see this thing, you see the next thing, the next conference, you get a little bit more sales, and here you are today, taking days off work to just building on top of each other.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
After that, I know a little bit of your story, so I'll be able to kind of lead some of this. Somewhere in there, I believe you started thinking about how to sort of maybe get this from being an Excel spreadsheet to software. Is that still
still in the works? Yeah.
And where, like, how has that thinking, how did that start, and how has it evolved over the last few months?
So the idea from the beginning was some kind of subscription model, right? Because that's just kind of thing everyone does. And so, the long-term like business idea has always been appealing to me. I'm like, hey, if I can create sustainable income for my family, where I was able to make us extra income, right? Because we want more kids, and more kids means a bigger house, and all of that is expensive, and I'm not making that at a church, so. I was like, what if I could do that and like be able to really provide for my family, and maybe it turns into a full-time thing. And so that was kind of the thinking behind it. And then I had this conversation about the one-time cost. I was like, well, it kind of does 2 things, where I make the money up front, and then I can be able to reinvest it into development. And so that was kind of that. And so in college, my mom always wanted me to consider computer science, and she's like, just take one class. And I'm like, okay. And so it was a Java class, CS 180 at Purdue. It was miserable. I remember taking the first exam, opening it up. They gave us this brick of a computer, and it had like pre-programmed 3 questions. And I opened the first question, and I just bull crap my way through it. I'm like, okay. And then the second one was like, I have no clue what I'm doing. So I shut it, turned it in, and I dropped the class the next day. So that's my very extensive experience with coding.
Yeah.
But with all of this advancement in AI, Claude has seemed to be at the forefront of coding. I've really got to dive in, and I've been able to take concepts from my Excel sheet and just be able to make it come to life through coding that I would have never known. I would have had 0 clue and 0 interest based off of my own experience. And now I'm able to talk my way to a concept and bring it to life.
Yeah, Claude has been, man, I've been using Claude Code for a while, or just even Claude in general, to do some code, and over the last 2 years. Early on, it was rough. It could create a landing page maybe, but now today with like 4.6, it can do some great things. Mm-hmm. I think you having some understanding, at least a little bit of code, will be a little helpful. You're gonna be able to make something here, I think, with what you have. You've already got the concept and the idea, and you've validated it. Now I think you're gonna be able to create something great with Claude Code. I can't wait to see how
I'm really excited. I'm really excited.
Where are you in that process with Claude Code?
Yeah, I really feel like I have an MVP product right now.
Okay.
And then if I have someone who understands integrations a little bit better than I do currently, I feel like, because everyone's like, well, I want it on autopilot or whatever. I don't want to type it in. And that's fine. And, Planning Center is obviously the major player in the church world, followed by, Rock RMS and Fellowship One, Church Community Builder, stuff like that. So I was like, if I can connect the big 4 or 5 ones, then, there's only a few people I won't be able to get. So, that I think integrations would be the appeal or the draw to the tool in general outside of the insights that they're not getting currently. But yeah, I think once the integrations are unlocked, I think it's ready to launch.
Yeah, awesome. So maybe you might be able to let somebody test it out in the next month or so, you think?
I think so.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. But all along the way, so you're building this thing to where your end goal, you have this kind of end goal in sight. But all along the way, you've been talking about how you're also selling it for one time, the Excel version of it. You actually already, in some ways, you created this thing that showed there's a demand for it, and you're making money off of it, and you're testing ads all along the way. I think what you have done is a great testament to like a person who feels like to start a business, they have to quit their job, work full time, or they have to get funding. They have to like go raise money to make this happen. You're showing that somebody part time with a full time ministry job with kids and a wife, all the things that come along with that.
Yeah.
And no funding, and you're like making it happen. I think is awesome. Really.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of late nights when the 3 of them go to bed. It's that's my time, and I've always been a night owl, and that's when I've really been able to do most of my work and I don't know why I get creative juices going then, but that's when it happens.
Hey, whenever God wants to give them to you, take them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Trying to think of like from here, or what are some of the things that you have learned over the last few months as you've picked up, because you already mentioned you've got 5 setup calls, and I think just a few months ago you didn't have that many. What's been your biggest thing that has driven people to your product?
Ads, meta ads, and so that one was a new one for me. I'm a linear analytical thinker. Like you do something and you get an output and it makes sense. Ads make 0 sense, and so I've spent countless hours on YouTube learning and trying to understand what it is that makes it go. And through a lot of our conversations is like you encouraged me, like, hey, you just gotta suck for a little bit and learn it. So
I don't think I said it that way, did I?
A little bit. That's how I took it. That you were like, don't be so quick to like outsource it and pay for it.
Yeah.
Like learn it. I'm like, okay. And so I learned it, and I wouldn't consider myself an expert marketer by any means, but whatever I'm doing is working. I learned about, well, just in general getting leads, but then lead form or lead magnets, with a lead form on it, get their information. I currently have one out there that's going at like $1.60 a pop for a lead, and it's obviously the sucky part is having to call them after, because what they're getting is the free thing, and you got to move them from free to paid. But there's like almost 500 people who downloaded it, and I started it January. Two and a half months, 500 people have downloaded it, and yeah, it's been awesome. And I get to meet people from all over. Like I just got a church from California. I have one in Iowa. Obviously a few in Indiana, Florida. I'm about to get one from Texas. And so it's like I kind of want to like start creating like a map of like once I check off every state.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, ads have been the thing that have really driven it to the next level.
That's cool. I do think too, like now that you've learned it, I do think first of all, most people that are bootstrapped probably should learn how to do these things, because at the very beginning, not only are you learning it, but you're saving yourself quite a bit of money by doing it. But what I do think is, I may have told you this, but what I think what it will do, at least what I saw in my career, is when I learned how to do that thing, I'm now better at managing the team that does it. So now that I at least understand and know the concepts of what it takes to do meta advertising, I can lead my team in it too. If I had never done it, I can see the input, I can see the output, but I can't really provide a whole lot. So I think it's going to help in the future.
I think I'm going to be in the same boat one day. And I used to be an operations manager at Cummins. They make diesel engines, and you really don't really understand the job until you hop on the assembly line and do it. So I'm really grateful for that experience where I got to learn how to like, hey, this works because of that. I probably would have never done it. And I think I'm really glad that I took up something that I would have never touched with a 20-foot pole, and now it's actually something like now it's a game. Like, how do I optimize it? How do I like, this one's killing it and this one's not, so let's adjust. And
Yeah, and you said there's no numbers in it. It doesn't make sense when you do this. I don't know if you said numbers, but I actually think it is very numbers. If you look at you can look at the data now, right? So it's like you have this creative and you have numbers for each one, and you can put together an analysis based on that and start to figure out. Yeah, I like the way you put it, because it's actually very similar to the way I thought about it. It's a game. It's like, how can I get as many leads as possible for the least amount? Awesome. I'm competitive. I'm gonna try to keep winning. So yeah, that's great. This has been great conversation. What are, like, to kind of wrap it up, is there anything else about Holy Insights to tell anybody? Anything you want to share, and also kind of finalize with like where they can go if they want to learn more about Holy Insights, or even you yourself?
Yeah, so I have an Instagram page. I try to put out free content at least once or twice a week, typically in the form of carousels of different topics, right? So we just talked about how the last one was next gen percentage is a predictor of your church's health and your church's growth. And then I also do a similar format. I call it Monday Metrics. It's a newsletter. There's about 300 people on it right now. And so it's a little bit longer form, but again, similar topics that you can digest that are easy takeaways. So I've had a lot of fun developing that as well. And then lastly, don't get numbers twisted with the gospel. There's a lot of people out there, like I'll put ads and you get nasty messages all the time. And it's crazy that it comes from Christians and pastors, but they're like, it'll water down the gospel. Like, it doesn't belong in the church or whatever. And I'm like, hey, like, just like in anything in life, you can't grow what you can't measure. Like, if you can't define it, it will never be a thing that's like, hey, this is our focus. And I can't think of a single reason why you wouldn't want your church to grow and why you wouldn't want more people to know Jesus. Because, like, if you have a way to measure your systems and measure your effectiveness of your ministry, and you had a visual and you were able to tweak some stuff and more people were spending eternity with you in heaven, I can't think of a reason why you shouldn't, at least keep track of it. It takes, 10 minutes a week tops, to keep track of this stuff. And so when people say like it'll water down the gospel, be like, yeah, if that's your only goal is the number of people in your seats on a Sunday, if that's your only goal, then yeah, you've lost the entire thing already. Right? It doesn't matter what you're using to track it. But if you really care about people going to heaven with you, then you should want your systems to be the best they can. And then now with Holy Insights, you would be able to have intel and insights on what's working and what's not. Again, why not?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that's good. That's really good. All right. Well, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, man. This has been awesome.
It's always good chatting with you, and thanks for letting me just record this conversation.
Thank you again for having me. I'm humbled and honored.
Yeah. All right. See ya.
See ya.